I was dragged into the early days of building Apple stores. We're deep involved in building Star Wars land down at Disneyland right now. And these are all people who said, who the heck can do that? And so our whole mantra is kick butt, be the guys that say, hey, we can do that. It's never been done before, but we can do it. We're creative. We've got ingenuity. We've got incredible craftspeople, and we don't fail.
This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Hey, this is Eric Anderton. Welcome back to Construction Genius. It's episode 24, and my interview today is with Tim Hogan, the president of Bayside Interiors. And we're going to have a frank discussion. He does not pull punches. He does not hold back. He's extremely open about the challenges and the opportunities of growing a profitable construction company, building technical projects for folks like Apple, Disney, Google, and the San Francisco 49ers. And we have a discussion about why human nature makes accountability essential, understanding and sticking to your niche, how to avoid limping across the finish line when completing a project, BIM modeling, hype versus reality, the advantages and challenges of being in a three-way business partnership, and what Tim would do if he had to start his journey all over again. We're going to hit on a lot of topics today. You're going to enjoy this interview. You're going to get deep insights into what it takes to be a successful construction company leader and how to build a profitable construction company. So dive right in, enjoy this interview, and I appreciate you listening. Welcome, Tim. I really appreciate you taking some time to meet with me here on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Just kicking it off here, Tim, how did you get into construction?
I was a schooled mechanical engineer. And in my last 2 years of college, I started working as a part-time estimator for a drywall firm, just to have a job. And then by that introduction, being in that mode, I met some people. So when I finally graduated, I got hired up by Unistrut Corporation and their construction side out of school, and that launched me into my career from that point, into the construction side of the business, as opposed to the mechanical engineering path I was going to with my degree.
Interesting. How did you get involved with Bayside? Tell me a little bit about your history with Bayside.
I was working for Unistrut Corporation, Unistrut, the framing system in their construction side. Basically, grew up playing with Legos as a kid and got to start doing it in real life as a Tinker Toy set, Lego set with Unistrut. And that talk about a kid who took his growing up love and turned it into his passion for his job. And in the process of working for Unistrut, I'd grown to be the number one sales guy in not only that company but all of Tyco. Tyco owned Unistrut eventually, the famous Donis Kozlowski Tyco. And they, because of the amount of sales I was doing, they were always messing with my comp program. So they finally pushed me over the ledge one day and just had gotten to know Steven Rivera, who was the president of Bayside at the time, through just golf. And he and I had been talking about, just what was going on with me at Unistrut. And then one day I told him, I said, would you guys be interested in opening up a specialty side of the business or a new company or something like that? And that led to a breakfast conversation the next morning with Burke, the founder, a business plan 24 hours later, a cash flow analysis 24 hours later, and a handshake agreement to let's do this. And then it took about 4 to 5 months for us to put everything together before I finally resigned Unistrut and came on over. And we started up a separate company to Bayside Interiors called Bayside Metal Systems, which was doing all kind of specialized construction that I'd been involved with when I was at Unistrut.
So that's very interesting. So you did sort of a radical shift in your career at that point and moved into a extremely committed situation with these gentlemen. Is that about right?
Scary step, correct?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Tell me about that then. What did you, as someone going from, a sales position into more of a leadership position in an organization with a partnership with a couple of other people, how did you process that decision?
the processing, obviously, scary step, so no doubt about that. I had been thinking about a path beyond working for the large corporation, and I was in that role. I was estimating, project management, engineering, so I had multiple facets of it, and a small side of the business. So my fear was the small side of the business, and Burke's, and that's where Burke assured me, listen, they got the back of house in place, so I could concentrate on the sales, engineering, estimating, building that I was very familiar with, and they would be able to support the back of house for me. So that kind of gave me my my belief that, all right, let's go do this. A little bit of blind faith. And Burke definitely was. I mean, through all of this path, kept telling me, listen, you can do this. Trust us. So then we made the jump, and then it was a learning process all along. But within about a year of being at Bayside, I joined Vistage, the CEO group thing, and that has been an incredible. I'm still involved in it these many years later, 15, 16 years later, and that has been a tremendous learning support program for me, as well as just the day-to-day trial by fire program that awesome. Running a company teaches us.
Awesome. So let's talk about that trial by fire a little bit. When you took on that formal leadership role, what was your biggest struggle? What did you really struggle with in that situation?
I had always been, in a top sales role, you just think about charging forward and, everybody keep up with you. So having to make sure that the back of house was being run correctly, and setting up systems and procedures, and then as I started building, bringing on employees, setting up structure and responsibilities, and a structure of the company, all of those paths became, as each one was being done, it was a learning process as I went through them. And I definitely have made mistakes along the way all over the place, and learned from it. Said, okay, we're not gonna do that one again. But I also very luckily was able to bring along many of my co-employees were at the place I worked before. So I was able to bring along a lot of horsepower with me very quickly that had a lot of faith and trust in people that had worked with me over at Unistrut for 10, 15 years. And one by one, they started jumping to come to work for me. So that aided me significantly in making this a successful program.
Did you have prior relationships with them in terms of being in a leadership role and they were reporting to you, or how did that work? It was unofficially reporting to me because I was the top sales gun and estimator and project manager. So they definitely looked up to me, right?
And looked to me as their leader, but it wasn't in the org chart. I wasn't their leader. So when I came over here, our friendship relationship became more, boss employee, relationship, which is, to this day, I still have many of them still here. And it's evolved more into the boss employee, but still with that long-term relationships that we've had.
So in that leadership role, as you were sort of iterating through learning and making mistakes and things like that, give me one sort of glimpse that you got of what it meant to be an effective leader that you really decided to focus on and obsess about.
And it still is ongoing, and that's my holding people accountable. And I tend to trust the people will be doing their job, and if they're going to work 4-hour a week, give me a 4-hour a week. I tend to be very trusting and not hey, get your job done, and I'm not going to worry about you. And through the process, I've learned that I can't be that free. That with people, because if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And that is, I've got many lessons where I trusted people and wasn't keeping on top of them, and not having them report to me in a timely enough fashion, and turn around and found some all kinds of things that I would find, and several employees that I've had to fire because of unfortunates. So I've become jaded to my ability to trust people 100%.
Sure. So let's
in the process.
Let me just go back to that word accountability, because in my experience, it's something that most people struggle with. Let me just ask you a couple of questions. What do you mean by accountability? And then how do you hold people accountable in a sort of a nuts and bolts blocking and tackling kind of way?
Yeah. Well, because the construction industry is a very dynamic business. It's not, people don't sit at their desks for 8 hours a day. And there's a lot of freedom with how they, their job sites, got to be doing job walks, got to be out and about. And I just always trusted that, that I'd know what they'd be up to. And as it turned out, once we actually got into some positions where we started going, hey, where is this person? We encountered and found things. We went, oh, okay, they're not at job sites. They're lying to us. And we've had situations with the field lying to us and stuff like that. So it's every time I've gone through it's required us to put a new procedure in place to create, just create tracking. Because I've learned if you give them, we learn always, all of us in leadership, we learn if we give the employees an inch, they're going to take, the next mile. So okay. We've just had to just keep kind of tightening the strings up because of that. And like I said, as I've had employees that, weren't, saying there were places and not, we've had to put tracking and we've had to put reporting, and I've had to have accounting checking in on things. And we've just had to do things that I never thought I'd have to do, but unfortunately I've had to because of human nature.
Now, yeah, it's interesting because of human nature, huh?
Yeah.
How do you find your best people respond to your willingness to hold them accountable?
In general, they have responded well. One or two have fought back, and one particularly fought back and very briefly fought back to the point to where he found himself unemployed. But predominantly, once we explained to him that we gave you freedom and you abused it, there was not much fight back. Especially when we show them the black and white of, we gave you freedom and this is what you did. This is what you did. So, most of them have kind of tailed between the legs. Okay.
Interesting. And so that's an ongoing focus of yours then is making sure that you're holding people accountable through technology means and just through human means so that they're performing what they need to perform in the role that they have.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's company wide. We just came out of our ownership meeting this morning, and it was topic again. Almost every week.
So that's interesting because you think about the idea of you mentioned human nature, and as a leader, it sounds like you acknowledge that, and because of that, you understand that there's certain things that you're going to have to do again and again and again, and you're not necessarily going to get beyond those things, such as holding people accountable.
Correct. Yeah, and I have this conversation with, many. I've got friends in Vistage groups with many other leaders, and we all talk about this. I was just talking to somebody with a large biomedical company this weekend, and they have a work at home program. They were just talking about how it's become a total disaster. They're not, the people are not there. Yeah, they're at home, but they're not working.
Yeah,
it's just that and we're discussing that right now with the current traffic state in the Bay Area. To trying to figure out, it would be great to be able to employees work at home, but I getting that accountability that they're actually getting work done, because there's no, you're not chimed into a computer, and there's not definitive tasks where you're sitting at a computer, doing invoices or stuff like that. There's a lot of accountability to that. And we are at this point, just based upon our last 15 years are going, man, we're not quite sure we would be able to control accountability if we let the people work from home because of what we've seen in the past. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, like I said, I went from a very trusting everybody to a, almost a full spectrum swing through these years of leadership.
It's very interesting. So it's interesting because if you think about your background from coming from a sales perspective, you talked about how well you did in sales. Typically people who are kicking butt in sales like you were are extremely self-motivated.
Correct. Yeah. And it's not, and we are used to being free, and we are used, I was used to being free and not being shackled and not being asked what I was doing with my time. And, no, hey, I'm performing. That's all you want to know, right?
Yep. No, it's interesting.
If I'm performing from the golf course or I'm performing from my desk, all you care about is I'm selling right now. So,
yep. So it's interesting that shift there. Let me ask you this: in terms of as you got into that leadership role, who were your mentors? Was there one or two mentors that you had that you were particularly able to tap into and get some wisdom and advice?
Yeah, well, definitely the founder of Bayside, Burke, was a great mentor to me. Burke Nicholson. And then, like I said, within a year, I'd gotten into Vistage. my Vistage chair that I've had he's been my mentor ever since.
That's terrific.
And he's a person that had run Camelback and several other large companies. So he and the whole Vistage program becomes a great peer group for people in leadership program in leadership world. So between your Vistage chair and then your fellow Vistage CEOs, it becomes just a great sounding board to learn and handle problems and be held. We're held accountable in our Vistage groups, and so that between those two worlds, that was my teaching people.
That's excellent.
I call them.
So let's kind of zoom forward to today a little bit. One of the things that you really emphasize in your company is promoting and sustaining partnerships with GCs. And I know you're in the Bay Area, you work with some of the largest GCs there. What do you think as a subcontractor, and specifically as a union subcontractor, what do you guys focus on in order to foster those relationships with your GCs?
Well, we definitely are not selective, but we definitely have people we will work for and not work for, and there are companies that we won't work for because they just are not. They are, be a low bid, grind you to death. So, in being in business for 30 years, we've built a lot of relationships, and a lot of that relationship is and our end of it is, and we don't wine and dine, we don't entertain, we perform. And that's our mantra. I'm not going to take a guy out to a Warriors game, hoping he's going to give me a job. He's going to give me a job, and we're going to kick butt on it and be his top sub on the site to be able to get the next job. And that's been our mantra and been my mantra since day one. Perform so that they want to hire you. And our whole goal, our whole company's slogan is we provide solutions, and our whole goal is to be the first person the general thinks of when they look at something and go, who the heck can build that? And that's where we've gotten ourselves positioned. I mean, we've gotten involved, and I was dragged into the early days of building Apple stores. We're deep involved in building Star Wars land down at Disneyland right now. And these are all people who said, who the heck can do that? And so our whole mantra is kick butt, be the guys that say, hey, we can do that. It's never been done before, but we can do it. We're creative. We've got ingenuity. We've got incredible craftspeople, and we don't fail.
So let me ask you,
and so
just real quick, you were talking about this idea of the word perform. Okay. And I think it's really interesting. We don't wine and dine, we perform. I think that's kind of killer, actually. Give me a specific example of what you mean by performance, and then contrast that a little bit with what you consider non-performance.
It's real. I just had this conversation with someone yesterday. I said, start with returning a phone call quickly, getting a client an answer quickly, need the proposal, get it to them on time. I mean, I tell this to people all the time. You want to be in the top 10 percentile in the industry. Return a guy's phone call right away. I mean, just those are. I mean, I'm kidding.
You can curse if you want
to. Yeah, I talk to generals, and they say you run a very large company, and I can call you at any time of day and get you on the phone, and I can ask you a question and get me an answer. And every one of your people are the same way. And then on our we do our job on time, quality wise. I mean, that's just, we push those things.
Okay. So let me ask you this
on time.
So on time and quality, one of the complaints I'm hearing from a lot of folks, GCs and developers and things like that, is because subs are so slammed with work and kind of the ball's in their court in terms of their backlog and everything like that, they're not emphasizing quality, and they're kind of limping across the finish line when it comes to the end of the project. So how do you as a subcontractor avoid that and keep, drumming away at the importance of quality?
We're staying in our lane and not stretching out past it. Okay. We definitely, over the last 2.5 years, we were definitely pushed by we were a major sub on the Apple campus, the big circle.
Yep.
And that pushed us manpower wise and pushed us to hiring a lot of people. But we have a lane, and we try to, we have a lane of volume and capability, and we try to stay there. And then we have a lane of who we work with that we know, that we can perform underneath the way they run their projects.
Okay. Okay, so that's interesting. How did you go about determining your lane?
We've kind of, it's evolved. It's just as we grown from 18 to 80 million. It's just kind of been, we kind of now know where our niche of job size is and niche of company size. We now, there's no push here to grow past that, because we know we go past it, we'll start growing to a point of, where we can't control it, and we start getting the, failing at the tail end of projects and not getting jobs done on time, and have employees who are not fulfilling the mantra of return the phone call immediately, get the bids on time.
That's very interesting. It's very interesting because it's so easy for a contractor to take on more and more volume and be so stretched thin that they fail to actually execute the projects.
And we have seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. We see it a lot. So it just is a reminder to us to stay where we are. And we talk about, when we look at jobs, is that, when does it go? Is it in our vein? Can we be successful? Can we build a relationship doing this job, or will it ruin the relationship doing this job? No,
that's really great. So speak to a little bit, because it seems that you taking on a project like with Apple, taking on the Levi's Stadium project that you guys were involved in the Bay Area, and you're talking about the Star Wars experience down in Disneyland. What do those things have in common, and how have they challenged you in terms of your technical abilities and growing that envelope of technical competencies?
They've all those projects always have stuff that hasn't been done before, or very technical aspects to them, and it just keeps pushing our level of how we're doing technology wise with our information out to the field, our level of detailing and engineering that we have to go do, just the training of our people to be able to understand the technology that's needed to, with the 3D and all that stuff that's needed at the coordination level, and that's it's grown our personnel with the path as we've taken on these large technical projects, and they're all, these three you mentioned, we're extremely technical projects.
So speak to that a little bit, and specifically in light of technology. In construction, there's you feel like there's this sea change happening in terms of technology, but it just moves so slowly because of the nature of the construction business. What technologies have you found to be beneficial in terms of your business, and which ones have you found to be a little bit hypey but not necessarily as helpful?
We've definitely found that getting all of our foremen are on iPads with the drawings uploaded, and we're able to do the drawings are now technological. They can do an RFI on the iPad. They can turn in their time on the iPads.
Nice.
So it's hard no more. There are guys going out to job site without a single roll of drawings underneath their arms. They've got the whole our shop drawings or the file on their little iPad, and everything's there. And that's allowing them to write the RFIs as opposed to calling the PM to write the RFIs, and them to process time and material tags on the iPad and having the superintendent sign it on the iPad. So that technology is aided. Definitely having the shop drawings, and then be able to mark up something on the shop drawing and send it back to our CAD department to have them make a change to the drawings with as-built. I mean, all of that technology has been great. The process that I still think it needs to be refined, because it is a tremendous money drain, is the BIM modeling program.
Interesting.
It is, it to me is become, it's out of control. It's a great idea, but you're in general, you are entrusting a bunch of CAD guys who don't seem to have cost control is one of their skill sets. So these guys will sit in 8-hour meetings 4 days a week, just spinning through. And when it's all said and done, it goes out to the field, and there's still conflicts everywhere. Dimensions are wrong, stuff's wrong. So I think that BIM modeling, in its base concept's phenomenal, and its execution is a disaster.
Okay,
in the industry right now.
So let's explore that right now. If there was one thing you could fix about the BIM modeling process, as coming from your perspective as a subcontractor, what would that be?
I think there needs to be a higher level of control on it.
Okay.
And I'm not quite sure how to do that, because that brings in far more experienced technical people into it. And these BIM modelings, you get involved in a major hospital, and you can tie up your BIM team for 40 hours a week for 4 months. And that is just, you add up the money on that, and it just seems incredible. And so the decision making that team is making in there, it seems to me that is more of a project manager level decision making. And some of that information is being made by CAD guys without even consulting with their project managers.
Interesting.
And like I said, then the model goes out to the field, and there still seems to be the same level of conflicts.
And so, do you think is that something that the GC needs to kind of take by the reins? Is that the GC's responsibility more than the subs?
You would think so, and it seems to be in more and more projects that the mechanical is put in charge of the BIM modeling process.
Interesting,
because they're the biggest items, and then mechanical tends to be the bully, and his stuff goes in first, and everybody else is trying to route around. So, and there have been good mechanicals and bad mechanicals in that process, but it seems to be in contracts, the generals are trying to not have that in their responsibility, so they can put the blame backwards. Because if it's in their responsibility and shit's wrong on the job site, use my French,
yep.
They controlled it. Where if mechanical can control the stuff goes wrong, well, okay, that's a problem. You didn't field coordinate. You're going to have to pay to fix it on your own. So
interesting.
And I think probably 8 out of 10 jobs we see mechanicals in charge of BIM.
And so it's interesting when I think of this, because it seems like what you guys do is it's very much focused. Well, I would say this is the stuff that you do can be extremely expensive potentially. Correct. And is that where this idea of the BIM folks not really having an appreciation for the cost, is that where you really you see that?
No, there could be that. There definitely could be constructability. My idea is the amount of time that is spent by people. You have people that'll just sit there on the conference call for 8 hours doing nothing.
Uh-huh.
And till a project manager goes, well, why the heck do I got 400 hours on this job from you? Well, I was just sitting on the BIM meeting doing what? Listening. No. What? That kind of. So I know, not in terms. Yeah, they definitely, the BIM can definitely cause constructability and construction issues that cost money, but it's more the time spent. And there doesn't seem, those guys are CAD guys. They don't seem to have a cost control method. And we definitely are battling that constantly, going, hey, you have a budget of 100 hours. You best start reporting when you get to 50%. So we've had to put that in place with our CAD department, because they definitely got loose on us, and we see it on other jobs. And we're starting to hear about, you talk to any mechanical, electrical, and they'll tell you, we put in X amount for BIM on every job, and it never seems to be enough. Never seems to be enough money. And when you're talking a major hospital, guys putting in $1 million in BIM time, it's just absurd.
Yeah, it's interesting, huh? Interesting. So coming back from the BIM discussion and moving to a little bit more about your employees. You have third generation employees working for you there.
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about how you sustain that loyalty. What do you guys focus on to sustain that loyalty over a long period of time?
I don't know if we focus on it. I think it's just the nature and culture of the business.
Uh-huh.
And I've got people. I've got a guy that's been with me for 30, 25, 22, 27. We just retired a 38-year employee 2 weeks ago. I think it's just the nature and culture of this place that, we're not abusive. We have allowed a lot of freedom. As I talked to before, we're trying to pull some of that back because of, what's been taken. But I think just from the way the business was founded in the very beginning with Burke, it's just been a place where the culture, just kind of reaps the fact that we get employees that don't want to go anywhere else. We definitely turn over employees, but there definitely is a culture that attracts the people to stay for a long time.
So that's really interesting about how culture attracts. So what would you say about your culture? What is one or two things about your culture that attracts people to stay with you for a long period of time?
I think it's definitely our business model where we just kind of stay in our vein, and we definitely get asked to, tackle very interesting projects. So the employees are always, getting challenged, and I think that it helps them be at a place that they want to be all the time. We don't necessarily overpay, we don't over bonus, we don't stuff like that. I think the way we run the business and the way we get involved in projects that excite and challenge the employees, I think is one of the things that keeps them. And then just like I said, just the culture around this office every day. The people that want, the people that like it stay forever.
That's awesome. And so what's the one thing one of your employees can do that will immediately cause him to be repelled from the company?
Well, we're finding cheating, lying, stealing is to be the kind of general file folder lately over the last couple of years.
Interesting. Interesting. How did you ever get into a situation where you have an employee and you hold on to them longer than you should have?
Yes.
How do you work through that as the leader of the company? Because I'm asking you because it's a common concern with a lot of folks, particularly with the job market at the moment. Yeah,
it's constant. I think our biggest, I think we all, and the owners here, we definitely have had our person that's been our person, and the other two have been saying, this guy's got to go, or our accounting department saying you got a problem with this person. And it's the fear of having to replace them and, fulfilling their role with a new person or having to hire on the street. I think that's where our reluctance has been, multiple times.
Yeah, it's interesting, huh?
So we tend to hold on longer, or, be looking for somebody before, as opposed to we should just be, and we've gotten better. We've definitely had some situations where we've held on for people a long time because we didn't have an answer for the replacement. And there needed to be, needed replacement stepping in very quickly into the volume and level of work that was needed. But we've definitely had some situations where we've definitely gotten better at, all right, here's the situation and done. Thank you. That was egregious. Thank you for working for us.
Yeah. No, excellent. So looking to the future here, if you could start your journey again, and if you had some advice for people, what are one or two things you would do differently in terms of your journey, specifically as you became a leader of Bayside?
I think I'd want to have had a better procedure thought process in place from the very beginning, as opposed to the kind of clunky changing, procedure process we've gone through over these years. Definitely have a tighter procedure process, how we do things, how the company is done, how everything's done the same across all the divisions. Having that clearer mindset, that's definitely been a program it's been a painful process for us to kind of build this. None of us, both Stephen and I, definitely aren't, and we definitely from a sales role. So, getting the procedures and stuff in place, and our accounting department has been very, adamant about, we need a uniform and stuff like that. So I think starting all over again with the knowledge I've had, I'd have a much tighter procedure process in place. I was asked a month ago or so, if I could do it all over again, what I'd do, and I go, that's interesting. Knowing all I know now, I'd be too smart and I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, right.
I had the 2-year-old naivety to jump into this, and I'd scared the crud out of myself when Burke asked me that in that first meeting to do a cash flow model.
Yeah, right.
I didn't, I knew a little bit about it. So I sat down that night at a computer and did a cash flow model, of, if I did this and cash flow and payroll and stuff like that. And, I rolled back in the next morning with the paper and looked at him and said, well, I guess this is a bad idea. It was going to take a significant amount of money to start up this venture. And he looks at me and goes, well, you're the first person that actually did that truthfully. So
interesting.
I'm going to give you a gold star and let's go. You're the first one looked at it and said, we're going to burn through a lot of money to get this thing going. So
interesting. So
I think. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. In your partnership, what are some of the advantages of being in a partnership, and what are some of the challenges that you found over the years?
The advantages, we definitely have different strengths And so, my shortcomings is Stephen's strong comings.
Right.
Mike's definitely things he likes to be involved in is things Stephen and I, don't want to be involved in. So it's allowed those kind of roles and responsibilities to be picked up by that person that seems to have that better strength. The weakness is we are three different people. Two of them are stepbrothers. So we have at times strained relationships, which is natural.
Right.
So we just it's at times we may not be and the employees see that clearly from time to time when we are not we're not quite harmonious amongst the three of us.
Interesting.
So that's definitely and that's with all partnerships. I'm sure you've had this conversation across many companies that have partnerships. And
so let me just ask you about that, because you're right there. That's why I asked you, is because partnerships are like marriages can be incredibly challenging. So and it's interesting how you immediately went to the fact that your employees can tell when you guys are strained, right?
Correct. And we are conscientious of it, and we are constantly trying to work on keeping our disagreements inside our conference room and not on our sleeves as we walk out. We definitely for a while there were a little too open with some of the things going on. So as we've grown, our tension between us has not changed, but our ability to keep that from the hallway has gotten better.
That's interesting. So what do you do in your executive meeting? How do you do that so that you don't come out with it on your sleeve? What do you focus on there?
I think a lot of us when we walk out of there, we don't still go. We don't go talking to somebody right away about we probably were all too vocal or we don't walk out of the office slamming, almost breaking the conference room door anymore. So that's, that's a little, like number one, no fisticuffs rolling out in the hallway. We've had that situation too.
Yep.
So we've had some Donnybrooks. So just walking away and keeping our stuff internal and not going to our little side confidence that we have as our, right-hand people. So,
yep. So think about that in terms of behaviors, right? You can make an agreement together. Okay, we're not going to slam doors, and then we're not going to sidebar around the water cooler with other people.
Correct.
That's interesting. So then let's just
and we've grown up, and that's basically been a growing up process.
It's funny, huh?
And I'm 55, and I still feel like I'm a 2-year-old learning every day and growing up. So
well, there's an advantage to having that kind of attitude, I tell you. So let me ask you this, just one last thing in terms of the partnerships. Let's say you have one of those Donnybrooks and, it gets really intense and gets really emotional. What do you do to restore that and to get back on the same page, just practically in your relationship with your partners? How do you go about that?
Wow, I'd have to let me think through some. Well, we definitely, that the issue needs to get talked out. And it needs to get, we meet weekly. We meet once a week. And we definitely have issues that carry on and eventually it just gets to a point of, it's three of us. So if two agree on it and one doesn't, then that's the overruling and everybody has to deal with the two voted yes and one voted no. And so, we only have a few things that need to be unanimous, but it basically just become two agree and one doesn't. So, and then we just all learned how to go. That's the answer. All right, that was what was all. Move on. So our childishness of our childish and snippety and all that stuff has had to go away. It's just all right. Deal with it. Move on. And then luckily our business is dynamic. So you walk out of the office and it's all everything's on fire and the roof blown off the building in business. So okay, next thing. So
that's sweet. Okay, so then just winding up the interview here, what would you say you want your personal legacy to be? When you retire or when you die, how do you want to be remembered?
I'm building it. I've gotten to be involved in some of the coolest things in the construction world. And I've gotten a heck of a reputation of being the guy that people call to go, who the heck can do this? So I've gotten to build my legacy with some incredible projects. Built the first big Apple store in Manhattan, the Cube, and just some project legacies are out there that, everybody knows what we've done and why we got involved to do it. And the industry still to this day, thinks of us first, in terms of the holy crud who could do something like that.
That's awesome.
So that legacy is built, and now it's my job just to keep maintaining it and keep getting involved in the next new fun. We're going to be involved in the Lucas Museum down in LA. The next new crazy, are you kidding me, built thing. So just keeping that mantra, and that we provide solutions, just keeping that mantra going, because our legacy is built and done. I've built that over my 30-year career. So it's just not going out, not burning out in flames, going out in glory now. So
no, it's interesting. And it's interesting how, just going back to the earlier part of the conversation, a lot of that is built not just on your technical abilities and skills, but on the fact that you pick up the phone and return a call.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yep. So, there's, on the one hand, there's a lot of complexity to what you do, but on the other hand, there's simplicity to being successful.
Correct.
So then with that in mind, and I'd like you to think about this in terms of being a subcontractor working with GCs and very demanding owners. I know Apple and Disney and all those guys, they're not just, hey, you guys just figure it out. I'm sure they have very high standards. What are the 3 action steps a subcontractor should take in the next 90 days to maximize the positive relationships they can have with GCs and owners?
Wow. Next 90 days.
Yeah. So if someone was going to take action from our discussion here, and I'm thinking specifically of a subcontractor, if you were looking at one of your fellow subs in the eye and saying, hey, man, this is what you need to do in the next 90 days to really make a positive impact with your GCs and owners, what would that be?
Number one, put some kind of policy and procedure place where emails and phone calls get returned that day.
Awesome.
No hiding from, not returning, no being too busy ever to. So that's my pet peeve, number one policy.
Yep.
And that, like I said, if you just do that, you put yourself. You already automatically put yourself as your general's favorite sub.
Yep.
And then another thing we push always is don't complain about a problem. If there's a problem, have the solution attached.
Okay.
We constantly see problems in job sites, and don't just say, hey, there's a problem. Go, hey, there's a problem. Here's our fix. Here's our suggested fix.
Right on.
And I challenge my people all the time to have that fix attached to it.
Right on.
And then first, and then next and foremost is, try to find niches. We have businesses, drywall, T-bar, paint. Those are commodities. And they're good businesses for us, but we get driven a lot by our specialty business. So find things that give you your niche, that, can provide that specialty that puts you in a position where the contractors are calling you at pre-con, or calling you when the architect shows up, or the architects are calling you going, hey, we're thinking of doing this. Do you think this is buildable? And that's that niche world that allows us to be at the beginning of conversations, and not just getting sets of plans and being a Me Too bidder.
Yeah, no, that's killer right there. Okay, so just to summarize that, return the phone calls and emails on the same day, and don't hide. Don't just complain about your struggles, but come up with solutions. And then clearly define your niche, so you're the person that someone calls during the pre-con and asks for a solution, as opposed to just hard bidding stuff left and right.
Correct.
Awesome. I like to ask this of every one of my guests. What's your favorite restaurant to eat at?
Oh, any Mexican restaurant with great spicy hot salsa.
Ah, okay. Any Mexican restaurant with spicy salsa. Excellent.
It could be the taqueria. It could be the Roach on the corner. Man, I'm a hot food aficionado. So
sweet, awesome. Well, Tim, I really appreciate your time. I think there's a lot of great takeaways for all kinds of contractors here, but particularly for subcontractors. I appreciate your insight and your openness. Anything that you'd like to add just as we close up the interview here today?
No, I know. I appreciate the opportunity to do this for you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.